Now, before we even get started, yes, I know that I'm not wearing one of my nice shirts, okay? I'm aware of it. I'm not as dressed as I usually am, but I'm just taking a couple of days off. I came to work a little bit more relaxed today. It's casual day for me. Look, dressing nice every day is a lot more difficult than some of you may believe. And so every now and then, I like to let my body breathe. The button ups and all that stuff gets a little bit constricted. So I let my body get a little breathing room. So had to go ahead and clear it up. I'm just waving some. I'm like, oh my God, it's 2 days in a row when Niko hasn't had a nice shirt on. I don't know what to do. Nah, it's cool. They'll be back. They will make a return, I promise. But I want to go ahead and talk about this Amazon situation, which I would consider New York City and the residents of New York victorious in. So congratulations to you all from avoiding that dumpster fire that would have eventually been the Amazon headquarters. I want to be very clear about something. The prospects initially did look promising. They wouldn't have remained that way. And activists, we already know how Amazon gets down, right? They have enough warehouses around the country that people are quite familiar with their labor practices and basically how they have had a history of mistreating workers. But it's a little bit of money. The idea or the prospects of more jobs being created looks a little bit attractive, especially if you're a council member, if you're a commissioner, if you're a local representative for the state assemblies. It can look a little bit more attractive. So I'm glad that the local establishment or the local politicians did have the discernment with the help of the activists to basically say, hell no, we're not going to get gypped. You might find a sucker, but it isn't going to be in this candy shop. So I'm glad that they took care of that. I did want to speak on AOC regarding this situation because I think it's well, for one, it's been discussed a lot in the mainstream, but because of it being New York, because of New York kind of in a lot of ways anointing her as a speaker for the city, which is nothing wrong with that. I would say that the progressive movement has people we consider speakers for the movement for the most part. There's nothing really wrong with AOC being put up in that position. However, there is something wrong. We're giving credit where credit isn't necessarily due. And it's funny that this story came up because I was talking to one of the OGs in politics. I'm not going to say any names, but you know who you are. Shout out to you. Someone who has a lot of experience, who has been an elected official, is constantly is in a high position in the progressive movement right now, where their only constructive criticism of AOC isn't that her policies aren't fantastic, but it's just all of us as a younger generation have to remember how to pay homage, give credit where credit is due, not forget those who have helped build the stepping stones that have allowed us to be the first, the youngest woman in Congress, that have allowed us to get these Green New Deal passed or be the first Muslim women in Congress and be as progressive as you want to be and that you need to be to get something done. There have been people that put up that fight, and this wasn't one of those Whoopi Goldberg shut up and sit down situations. This was somebody who adamantly supports AOC, and they were saying, that's all out there would suggest, because it will come back and people will remember. And so that's why it's funny that this story comes out, because I felt like AOC almost heard us having this discussion. And I'm glad that this was her response. So the mainstream media, specifically actually MSNBC, basically tried to give AOC credit for the Amazon deal falling through. Now, AOC spoke out about it whenever it was about to finally come into fruition. But outside of that, she didn't really do that much. Now, she addressed this on Twitter by saying that she was responding to Anthony Atumanuik, where he says, "I'm also amazed that this Amazon pullout is now being placed on AOC on MSNBC. Somehow, this one person, not the governor or the mayor, not the terrible Amazon deal in general, apparently it's all the fault of the freshman congressperson. So I guess the problem really is not that we say giving her credit, because if she was credited with that, that would be whew, that would be great, right? But they're actually trying to say that it's her fault that it didn't fall through. Now, I love AOC's response to it, because obviously she realizes that, yeah, Amazon not establishing itself in New York isn't a loss, it is a victory. And she says that she's also laughing at this, and that Amazon was not coming to my congressional district. So she admits that. Had no concentrated outreach to AOC that she's aware of, and yet, with no effort, I defeated the richest man in the world. Doesn't add up. Story that's not being told. The local community organizing to reject it. And then Ben Max even says, for whatever reason, this is the same one who's been kind of, he says, are we overrating AOC's impact on the Amazon blow up? She said, I think so. Grassroots community members led and organized the entire effort. Wouldn't have happened if they weren't there. So, we got really two victories here. In my opinion, it's extremely important for a politician or a leader of any kind to give credit where credit is due. All too often do we put our politicians, because they've kind of encroached into the celebrity status, for the good or for the bad, we put them on a pedestal. We celebrate them when they need to be celebrated. Sometimes we attack them when they maybe perhaps shouldn't be attacked, right? But most importantly, and what I think doesn't get discussed enough, is the amount of organizing that takes place in order to make sure that things like this do not happen, right? It gets overlooked a lot, right? So we can use the same person, for example, AOC. What she's doing with the Green New Deal, it's been fantastic. Like I said, Jill Stein co-signed on it. It's a resolution right now. It isn't finalized, but I imagine because of her political capital that she does not want to lose, and the mandate that she has that she doesn't want to lose, it'll end up panning out to be a damn good deal. However, she didn't thank Bernie Sanders, for example. She didn't thank Jill Stein and the Green Party, for example. Not saying that she discounts them, not saying that she doesn't recognize them, but that type of omission when doing something this revolutionary, politicians will remember, because at the end of the day, they do have a vested interest in being on the right side of history as well, especially as more people are now starting to pay attention. So you eventually end up losing endorsements over controversial legislation, even legislation that shouldn't be controversial, because the Green New Deal shouldn't be a controversy. Medicare for all shouldn't be controversial. However, it ends up becoming that. And so if you're going to ask people to put their career on the line, it's very important for us, for politicians and for leaders to say, look, yeah, I may be the vessel. However, these people are the ones who paved the way for me to do this. I'm just using the clout that I have, however small, however large, to get these policies passed for the people, using the tools that have already been given to me, because politicians will remember what you did for them whenever it's time to introduce another piece of legislation, or whenever it's time for them to endorse you, or vice versa. So I'm glad. On the other side, so I'm glad for AOC. That shows, in my opinion, a great sign of maturity, growth, and humbleness, because it's not everybody's willing to do that. Most people are very much so I. They put everything on their shoulders, and very often forget to thank other people. That's actually one of the things that things that people loved about Bernie when he came out, is he hated if people were like, thank you, Bernie. He's like, no, don't thank me. It's you. You are the ones who are supposed to be in charge and leading this revolution, not me. That's why his motto was not me, us. So glad to see her do that. In my opinion, definitely adds to her political credibility. Take some of the edge off of the Ilhan Omar situation. A little bit. You got a little miking up to do, but you're getting back there. On the other side of that fence, the victory for New York is massive. Once again, I had to give a shout out to not just the activists, but the politicians came together at the breaking point when we're reaching critical mass, have them make a decision. They looked through the documentation. They actually did their due diligence because there was probably a few politicians that were paid off, right? They were paid off. Hey, don't look through this. We're just gonna hand this to y'all. Go slide under the table, pick that up, sign it, send it back, fax it, screenshot it. Send it over to iPhone. I don't care how you get it back. Just don't read it. Because if you read it, you're not going to like it. Well, politicians read it, and guess what? They did not like it. Once again, activists were already private to this. We're not silly. We know how the game goes with Amazon. Politicians, they see the numbers. They see the possibilities. But this time, I can't really overstate how important that is and how amazing it is. The politicians considered the consequences instead of looking at the immediate benefits, or at least the optical benefits. That is extremely important because that's really how we should be dealing with any policies or major integrations like what they try to do with Amazon going forward. Is that some of these numbers look better. Oil pipelines, same thing. They said it was going to create all these jobs. What they didn't say is those jobs were only going to last for 8 months, right? That a lot of those jobs aren't even going to be going to the people in the state. They forget to say stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So like, I was glad to hear that. Now, here's some of the things that the politicians might have had problems with. Amazon wasn't in New York, wasn't going to allow for the workers to unionize. I don't even know how the conversation even got to the point where it did without unions being on the table, to be totally honest with you. Don't know how it got there, but it did. Now, maybe there is a possibility, once again, that in their initial deliberations, they didn't have the conversation because New York, given its laws, automatically assumed, hey, you know that you have to allow your workers to union for salary jobs and for things like that, if they so choose. And they were like, nah, no, we're going to slip. Once again, they slide that paper in there, try to pay a couple people off, hoping people don't read it. Luckily, wasn't the case. People actually read through this time. Love it. So that was a big problem. I know, right? Big surprise. Amazon not allowing workers to unionize or have basic benefits that most people should be entitled to. I can't really say that any of us are surprised there, but they were going to try to get away with it anyway. So, the next thing, they work with ICE. Jeff Bezos works with ICE. ICE is a Gestapo mercenary. Like I don't approve of ICE. People are like, what are you doing about the immigration? Yo, I know this is crazy, right? Listen, believe it or not, ICE is relatively new, and since its existence, immigration has actually gone up, right? Okay, so there's that. Yeah, now they're running in people's homes, sometimes wrongfully detaining people, separating families. They're ramping up and trying to prove a point that they're out there now, but ICE has existed for quite some time. But even more importantly, they're called the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The thing is, Department of Homeland Security already enforce immigrations and customs. So basically, your name goes into a federal database if you mess up, right? If you're undocumented and you get caught doing something, you're subject for deportation by the courts. Like, this isn't new, right? That's what you're not getting. ICE detains people, they hold people, they track people down. They're not the ones you're standing in front of in court. Immigration court is totally different. So they're Gestapo. I don't like ICE. They get it wrong a lot. They bully people. And 21 Savage, the rapper that was recently, first of all, he was arrested by ICE. They put out the wrong story purposely. Of course. Why wouldn't they? They also said he wasn't entitled to bail. He was. Of course, conveniently enough, and if you know the whole story, you'll get why this is convenient. after the Grammys, maybe the day after, all of a sudden, after saying he was not entitled to bail that entire time, all of a sudden, he was entitled to bail. Just in time for him to not perform the song that they probably didn't want him to perform that got him in trouble to begin with. So ICE is just not our friend. I don't care if you're documented or undocumented, citizen or non-citizen. They're not our friends. The fact that Jeff Bezos would work with them says a lot. Because maybe if it was ICE in a vacuum, I would probably be less likely to consider it a huge problem. But the problem is Jeff Bezos has all the wrong friends. So you're going to tell me you're in business with ICE. You're also in business with the CIA. You're also on the board of the Pentagon. I mean, bro, you're also the richest man in the world so you're on the board of the Pentagon. You store your data. You store all of our data for the CIA. And you're in bed with ICE on top of all of that while being the richest man in the world, which is a whole different conversation that I can get into on another video. But long story short is, it is no coincidence that people like him and Mark Zuckerberg happen to have people formerly on the CIA or directly working with the CIA. They get their names out there, their faces out there, and all of a sudden, even though eBay existed, even though Twitter existed and MySpace existed, all these other programs have existed before them and have even been better than them, get these really lucrative investments by one company named InQtel that may or may not be in Arlington, Virginia, and is completely and totally ran by the CIA. And then those people not only become mega billionaires beyond any type of conception, but also their faces are also put out there in a way that we don't see other mega billionaires' face put out there. There's a reason for that. So, and the reason is they're willing to play ball with the intelligence agencies and they take our data, store it, and use it against us, which brings us to our next pretty interesting complaint. So people don't realize that Amazon started out with 238 cities. Metropolitan, good economies, at least 1 million people, friendly to businesses. They narrowed it down to 20. Okay? They narrowed it down to 20, which is nothing wrong with that. 20. You figure like, okay, these are the 20 that we're going to try to invest in. Yeah. That's not exactly what happened. So because obviously, they did try to invest in New York. New York was like, nah. And by the way, New York gave them the chance to address all the gripes and grievances. But we know they were hoping they didn't. I'm telling you, they were like, don't read it. If you read it, you're not going to like it. They thought they paid off enough people. They didn't pay off quite enough. But the deal falls through with New York and they just scratch the entire idea. No more headquarters. No second option. So you went from 238 to 20 to 1 to 0. Interesting. It's almost as if you never planned on establishing a headquarters where that was going to be legitimate or actually successful or do the things that you claimed it was going to do ever. That's kind of what it looks like. Because let's be honest. Would it really be beneficial for them to establish a headquarters? Say 50,000 jobs or something. So, you shop there and all that good stuff. But then you have to pay more people to be on the ground. You start shipping from stores, you have to pay for stocking. You have to pay for transportation. You got to pay for a lot of stuff. Things become expensive. The overhead costs actually probably end up outweighing the benefits after a while, because of just how successful they've been being purely online is what I'm saying. So why would you even want to do that? Has anybody considered that they were never actually planning on doing that? It may have even been looking for an excuse to pull out because it was never about establishing a headquarters. But the 238 metropolitan areas that are business friendly, have a strong consumer demographic, and love shopping on Amazon, according to the numbers, all of a sudden you just got all of their data. You got all their data, all their schematics. You know things about that city that you probably shouldn't know. Billions of dollars worth of data and schematics. and you, after getting all this information, making a huge deal about how important this is and how beneficial it would be to cities, adding jobs, et cetera, you know what? We're not going to go around the second option. We're just going to nix the whole thing. Yeah. That probably means, once again, in a way that's probably the most important, New York dodged a bullet. They really did, because it was never about like I said, maybe they would have built it, but then it would have been like trash and then they would have closed it. I don't believe that they were actually trying to get this deal done. They got the data that they needed. Like I said, Jeff Bezos, he's pretty unshy about it, gives our data to intelligence agencies. These are facts. This is used for campaigning, for manipulation, it's for sale, and that's what he really got. He knows what investments to make now, because now it isn't going to be just about Amazon. He owns Washington. I think he owns Washington Post, or at least owns a majority share in the Washington Post. So it's about the empire. That's what I believe. What do you think? Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.